was an operations manager at a regional fulfillment center processing about 58,000 customer orders a day. A severe weather alert arrived 30 hours before our largest weekend promotion, but the carrier forecast, absence data, and customer demand model contradicted one another. I had to choose a staffing and dispatch plan before the labor booking deadline without knowing whether demand would rise by 8% or 32%. I compared holding the normal plan, buying maximum agency labor, and creating a reversible two-wave plan that protected the evening carrier cutoff. I sampled the last 6 weather events, called our 2 largest carriers, separated orders by promise date, and found that late inbound trailers, not picking capacity, had caused 4 of the previous 5 misses. I booked half the optional labor, moved 20 trained people to a flex roster, pre-positioned empty cages, and set decision points at 10 o'clock and 2 p.m. using inbound volume and backlog age. Finance challenged the standby cost and planning preferred one fixed forecast. I showed that the flex plan cost £7,800 less than maximum cover while limiting exposure to late customer promises. When inbound volume rose faster than expected but absence stayed low, I activated only the second picking wave and kept the remaining agency shift cancelled. I wrote the decision, assumptions, owners, and stop conditions on a 1-page control plan so the next shift could challenge the logic rather than rely on verbal context. I used both a leading indicator and a customer outcome measure that prevented a short-term productivity improvement from hiding quality, safety, or backlog age. During implementation, I stayed at the operating point for the first cycle, asked frontline employees what the mechanism missed, and changed only one variable at a time. I assigned named owners for each checkpoint and made escalation thresholds visible in the shift huddle, which reduced ambiguity when I was not physically present. After stabilization, I compared the result with the original baseline, checked for cost or defect displacement, and documented the mechanism for the other shifts. Before committing, I asked a supervisor who disagreed with me to identify the weakest assumption, then converted that concern into a measurable checkpoint rather than relying on consensus. I separated mandatory controls from preferences, which let the team move quickly without weakening the safety, quality, or customer promise that the operation existed to protect. For each alternative, I estimated the likely customer impact, labor requirement, operational reversibility, and worst credible failure, and I explained why my chosen path offered the best balance. I briefed affected teams before launch, checked understanding through questions rather than attendance, and made the escalation route clear to people working outside my shift. I also protected normal operations by defining which work would pause, which work would continue, and who could authorize expansion beyond the initial controlled scope. At every review point, I compared actual performance with the assumption that justified the decision. When they diverged, I changed the plan rather than defending the original recommendation. I made the cost of the choice visible as well as the benefit, because hiding overtime, rework, or displaced backlog would have made the result look stronger but less useful. Once the immediate issue was resolved, I held a short review with frontline representatives and partner teams, captured what failed in the original mechanism, and assigned permanent actions. The follow-up remained on my weekly operating review until the control had an owner, an auditable measure, and enough stable data to show the improvement was sustained. We shipped 99.3% of orders by promise, cleared a 21% demand increase, and spent £11,400 less than the maximum labor option. The judgment was correct, although I had overestimated the need for packing cover by 6 people. I also documented the operating assumptions, named the owner for each follow-up action, and set a clear review date so that temporary controls could not quietly become permanent. That discipline helped distinguish correlation from causation. I looked for the expected change at the affected process step before crediting the intervention for the overall outcome. When evidence is incomplete, I separate irreversible customer harm from reversible cost, create explicit decision points, and avoid pretending a single forecast is certainty.